There is a quality that certain people have that appears from the outside to be unlimited. They absorb other people's pain without being destroyed by it. They give emotional energy consistently and over long periods without running dry. They sit with suffering, other people's suffering, sometimes enormous amounts of it, and remain present, warm, and genuinely available in a way that most people cannot sustain for more than a short window before the weight of it becomes too much. Most people assume this quality is simply a matter of having more capacity, that some people are built with larger reserves than others, and that those reserves eventually deplete like everyone else's, just more slowly. The research suggests something more interesting and more precise than that. The people who sustain genuine compassion over time are not necessarily people with more emotional resource. They are people who have learned, consciously or through hard experience, to engage with suffering through a fundamentally different neurological pathway than the one that produces exhaustion. The difference is not how much they have, it is how they give. Part 1. 2 Ways of Feeling. Research from the Max Planck Institute for Human Cognitive and Brain Sciences identified something that reframes the entire conversation about compassion and its limits. When a person is exposed to another's suffering, there are 2 distinct empathic responses available. The first is empathic distress, an aversive and self-oriented response in which the boundary between your own emotional experience and the other person's collapses. Their pain becomes your pain so completely that the primary motivation becomes withdrawal, getting away from the source of the distress in order to protect yourself from it. The second is empathic concern, an other-oriented response that maintains genuine emotional resonance with the suffering person while preserving a distinct and stable sense of self. The motivation that emerges from empathic concern is not withdrawal, it is approach. It is the genuine desire to move toward the suffering and attempt to relieve it. Neuroimaging shows these 2 responses activating entirely different brain systems. Empathic distress lights up the regions associated with processing threat and pain, the insular cortices, the anterior medial cingulate cortex, the amygdala. Empathic concern activates the brain areas linked to dopaminergic reward and oxytocin-related affiliation, the ventral striatum, the nucleus accumbens, the medial orbitofrontal cortex. One produces the neurochemistry of threat, the other produces the neurochemistry of meaning and connection. Both feel like caring from the outside. From the inside and from the brain's perspective, they are categorically different experiences, producing categorically different outcomes over time. Empathic distress depletes. Empathic concern sustains. And the critical variable that determines which pathway activates is something researchers call self-other differentiation, the capacity to feel genuinely with another person while maintaining an emotionally separate sense of self. Not distance, not detachment, differentiation. The ability to be fully present inside someone else's experience without losing the boundary that tells your nervous system whose experience it actually is. Part 2. The variable that changes everything. Self-other differentiation is not emotional coldness. It is not the clinical detachment of someone who has learned to protect themselves by feeling less. It is something more precise and more difficult. The capacity to be moved by another person's pain without being consumed by it. To hold their suffering with genuine care while remaining grounded in your own separate emotional reality. To know, even in the midst of deep empathic engagement, that the pain belongs to them and not to you. This distinction matters because the failure of self-other differentiation is what produces compassion fatigue. When the boundary dissolves and the other person's emotional experience floods into your own, the nervous system responds to that flooding as a threat. The amygdala activates, the stress response engages. The dopamine circuits that mediate reward and motivation begin to deplete. And over time, the person who once found meaning in caring finds themselves unable to access that meaning, not because they stopped caring, but because the neurological infrastructure that made caring feel meaningful has been exhausted by chronic exposure to threat-level empathic activation. The person with strong self-other differentiation does not experience this because they are not activating the threat pathway. They are activating the reward pathway. Empathic concern generates positive emotions towards suffering. Not positive in the sense of being comfortable, but positive in the sense of being motivating, affiliative, connected to meaning. These positive emotions function as an emotion regulation strategy that buffers the negative emotional content of exposure to suffering. The pain of the person being cared for is genuinely received, but it is received into a system that metabolizes it as motivation rather than threat. That metabolic difference is the whole distance between infinite empathy and compassion fatigue. Part 3. What it actually looks like. The person who has developed genuine compassion resilience does not look like someone who has armored themselves against feeling. They look like the opposite. They are often the most emotionally present people in any given room, the most capable of genuine contact with another person's interior experience, the most able to sit with difficulty without flinching or redirecting or filling the silence with something more comfortable. What they have that the compassion-fatigued person lacks is not more resource, it is better regulation. They have developed, through whatever combination of temperament, experience, and conscious practice, the capacity to maintain the self-other boundary under conditions of sustained empathic demand. They can be with someone in their worst moments without becoming that worst moment. They can hold the weight of another person's suffering without taking it home in their body. Not because they care less, because the caring flows through a pathway that does not destroy the vessel it moves through. This is what makes genuine compassion resilience rare and what makes it worth understanding. It is not a personality trait distributed randomly across the population. It is a capacity that exists on a continuum and that can be developed through the understanding of which neurological pathway is being activated, through the cultivation of self-other differentiation as a conscious practice, through the recognition that protecting your own emotional boundary is not selfishness, but the precondition for genuine sustained care. The oxygen mask principle made neurological. You cannot give from a threat state. You can only give from a state that your nervous system experiences as safe enough to be generous. Final thoughts. The research makes a distinction that most conversations about caring never make. Compassion does not fatigue. What fatigues is empathic distress, the specific neurological state that occurs when the self-other boundary collapses and another person's suffering activates your own threat response. The capacity for genuine empathic concern, properly understood and properly regulated, does not deplete. It generates the neurochemistry of meaning and connection. It activates reward rather than threat. It produces the motivation to continue caring rather than the motivation to withdraw. The person who sustains genuine compassion over years and decades has not found a way to care less in order to last longer. They have found a way to care more accurately, to remain inside another person's experience without losing themselves inside it, to be moved without being swept away, to give without the giving consuming what it comes from. That is not a limit on empathy. That is empathy functioning at its fullest capacity. The person who has nothing left to give and the person who seems to have an infinite supply are not different in how much they care. They are different in where the caring lives in the nervous system and what it costs when it moves.